good. I'm going to eat after. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Good afternoon, everybody. Although it's not afternoon yet, is it? So hi, everybody. I'm Lori, if you don't already know. This is Atlantic Office Technologies. Today is AOTuesday. And this is not a selling event. This is an informational event. So feel free to talk to each other and get to know each other, and we'll pass business cards when I sit down. But today's all about information. So today we're going to learn information about cybersecurity from Mr. Mike Reff at Towne Insurance.
Thank you, Lori, Frank, everybody from AOT. Appreciate you inviting me out here to talk to you today to talk about cybersecurity and cyber insurance. Atlantic Office Technologies was gracious enough to provide food, drink, and this great facility. I love this part. Wait a minute. No, it works on both sides. Like, I was going the wrong way. Thank you. Again, my name's Mike Reff. I'm with Towne Insurance. I've been in the insurance industry more than 30 years. I've been with Towne Insurance for 20 years. Most of my clients are commercial contractors and developers, but I ended up getting into cyber security and cyber insurance because right now it's the #1 risk that businesses have identified for 2022. When all businesses were large and small said, what's your biggest risk? And cybersecurity is actually raised all the way up to #1 now. I'm sure you've heard about cyber incidents that have happened. Before I get too far into the presentation, I just want to go around and get to know you all better because it's a small group and we could interact. So just say your name, where you're from, and kind of what you do.
My name is Towne. I work for Atlantic Office. I am a project manager. I am from here and Charlotte, North.
Hi, everybody. Lori Walker, Atlantic Office Technologies. 20 years in business. Happy to help.
Silence with integrated security technologies. In addition to physical and electronic security, we also provide cybersecurity solutions.
I'm Frank. I'm from here, born here, raised all around the world. My dad was in the Navy. I've been here for about 3 years, and I am the cyber guy here.
This is my 7th day with them. And I have a new position. I don't know if y'all know Chuck Worley, but I am his assistant, so he was there with me. I'm a retired police officer. I was born and raised in Houston.
My name is Jerry Evans.
Born and raised on the peninsula, still stay on the peninsula, but work everywhere from Union Beach to Richmond. For a company called Cassenberry, we do payroll and credit card processing for small to large businesses. Tailor what I do to find business owners' needs, help them out best I can.
Awesome. Well, thanks, everybody. Seems like we have a diverse crowd, but one thing in common, everybody uses technology. Is there anybody in this group that does not use technology? I didn't think so. So because of the fact that you use technology, we all are susceptible to cyber incident. First question, what is a cyber attack? Has anyone experienced one? Anyone in this group experienced a cyber attack at their company? Urgent, right? That is very typical, a way that folks reach out. And by the way, I didn't mention it, but interrupt me while I'm talking. If you have questions, just raise your hand. I want to kind of go back and forth and not just me talking to you, because that gets really boring, I think, for both of us. So anyone else experience a cyber incident, cyber attack, phishing? Great idea. Nice. So that's another way. Yeah. So simply a cyber attack, it's an assault launched by cyber criminals using one or more computers. They can use botnets, I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, where they reach out on the internet and they get multiple computers. Could be tens, could be hundreds, could be thousands of computers that are all connect together and work for them, reaching out on the internet, trying to find open ports, ways to get in, and that's just one way. A cyber attack can maliciously disable computers, steal data, use a breached computer as a launch point. So that's one of the biggest things that cyber criminals look to do, is find out, do you have a computer that's connected to the internet that is accessible? One way they access computers is through your router. A lot of routers, when they are set up, delivered, and go out to the customers, they have default settings on them. And some of the routing companies are not thinking very smart, and they put default settings like admin. The admin password is admin. So cyber criminals can easily go out to the internet, search for routers, and poke at and see if which ones are admin. Any of them that are set up like that you haven't gone in and changed the default passwords, they can easily get in, and they immediately have admin access now into your router and can get into your system. How do cyber attacks affect your business? They can bring your business to a halt that quickly. A cyber criminal comes in, takes control of your data. You get a little message that says, pay us 50 Bitcoin, and we will release your data and let you get back to work. Has anyone experienced a cyber attack like that? No? Okay, good, because those are hard to recover from. What we offer, and I'm not here to sell insurance, but I recommend that you get insurance for cyber, because that would be the time to call your cyber company, call AOT, actually call your attorney first, because conversation that you have with them is attorney privileged, and if they direct you on what to do, you're in a much better situation than if you try to do something yourself and it doesn't work. A lot of companies will get nervous, like, let's just shut down our servers. That doesn't work. So first of all, have a plan of action. Prepared for if something happens, what you can do. All your employees can basically just get locked out of the system, so nobody can access anything. If you can't use email, everybody is calling each other. It's hard to conduct business that way in this day and age if you can't access your emails, your servers, your data. Your customers' confidential information and your crucial business information can also be taken and then sold. mean, that's one of the biggest things that they do. If they get a big hack, oh, we've got all this data. A lot of times they'll reach out to the owner first, and they'll say, hey, we've got all this data, and they'll send you just a little snippet of it, so you can kind of see, oh yeah, they do have our data. No one would be able to show us this unless they gotten into our system. And then they'll say, give us this much money, again in Bitcoin, because it has to be something that the money trail. So electronic currency has done wonders for the cyber criminal world, because now they can conduct business through electronic means, Bitcoin, basically any type of electronic currency. And there's actually companies that have set up electronic currencies just to work with criminals. So that because they need some place to go that's going to allow them to conduct business without somebody coming in and say, wait a minute, this is criminal activity. We don't want you here. So they actually have places that are looking for criminals to conduct their business activity. Oftentimes it's a hefty ransom, 6 figures or more that they're looking for. And then if you don't pay it, they threaten to sell the data to somebody else. Usually it's worth more to you than it is to somebody else, so that they usually reach out to the owner of the data first. They're very costly. A successful attack, the average is $3 million, which seems like a lot, but realize most of the attacks are on larger companies. The attacks have been, I don't know if you've seen, almost every company, large company I can think of, has had some type of attack. Maersk, which is a shipping line, they were attacked to the point where they had no idea where their shipping containers were, where they were going, what warehouses they were in, and I don't know how they eventually figured it out, but luckily they had enough money that they could continue operations. They lost millions and millions of dollars, but they were big enough that they could sustain a cyber attack. Equifax, the companies that manage our data and that we like to trust, that are keeping our data safe, they're not. I mean, they're trying to, but unfortunately, those are the type of companies that cyber criminals go after. Maersk? Yes. So the insurance, and there's different insurance policies, there's different programs, they're not all the same. Cyber insurance is still fairly new, and we'll get into that part in a little bit about insurance and how it protects it. WannaCry. Anybody hear about WannaCry? No? All right. I guess the thing is, it doesn't make the public news so much. This was the first largest massive cyber attack, billions of dollars that it cost. And it was a botnet system that basically replicated itself. And so when it went out to one server, it attacked that server, collected the data, and then went to the next server, the next server, the next server. And they identified who's behind it, North Korea. Go figure. A lot of these cyber attacks are from what we would call countries that we are not in the best favor with. North Korea, Russia, Iran, China. Those are 4 countries that it is their job, it seems like, to promote cyber attack. The government supports them, the people, cyber attack. That is, instead of attacking us with missiles and bombs and people with guns, this is how we're being attacked now in the United States. Why? Why are they, what's the reason for the cyber attack? I'm looking for an answer here. Money. It's all about money. That's really what it comes down to. They're looking for ways to take money from us to them to support what they want to do. Whether, yes. can't say for sure that cyber criminals came up with Bitcoin, and I don't know necessarily that they did. It was an Asian gentleman, I forget his name, but when it was the gentleman who created the whole technology behind it, I don't think that was the idea. But it's kind of like when we came up with nuclear, being out nuclear bomb and separating that. The first thought wasn't to blow up everything. It was, okay, it's like a protection. And then, of course, criminal gets involved and says, oh, but I can use it for this, for that. So that's kind of what's happened. So take us fast forward to last year, SolarWinds. Anybody hear about the SolarWinds attack? Okay, at least now we're getting more where people have heard about this. SolarWinds was at that point the largest and most sophisticated attack the world has ever seen. Just over a year ago, and this is from Microsoft president. Moving along, Colonial Pipeline. Okay, everybody heard about that one, right? So this was the first cyber attack, in my opinion, that got notice of the people, the general public, where people realized, wait a minute, what happened exactly? A lot of people didn't realize what it was. They thought the pipeline broke, that there was a break in the pipeline and that the fuel wasn't able to be transmitted through. But what happened was it was attacked and it suffered ransomware, which is now that's the big thing now. It used to be malware. Companies would put malware on your computer, wouldn't be able to work, and they'd say, okay, send some money here, and we'll give you a key to fix it. Then they realized, or the criminals realized, wait a minute, there's a lot more money in ransomware, where we take your data and we hold it for ransom, and then we try and sell it back to you. This particular cyber attack basically hit the whole area from here on the eastern and southeastern shore coast. Next, June 9th, probably nobody heard of this one, JBS, meat processing plant. Some folks heard about it. There was remember price of beef and meat went up all of a sudden last year. What happened? Well, they got hit by a cyber attack. So the cost of cyber attack is getting passed on to the consumer. In the end, we're paying for it. Large companies, they're dealing with it, they're managing it the best they can. But what happens is costs go up. Gas went up, beef went up. July 4th, a ransomware attack by Russian-based REvil. So a lot of these cyber groups, they've been identified. Our NSA, they know who the groups are, but they're in Russia. They're in other countries. They can't necessarily get to them. There was another cyber attack in Russia, and what it was a company had found a way to get in to tablets. So a lot of restaurants you go into, there's a tablet and you order your food through there. Well, they found a lot of chains. It was really easy. Tablet. They could go in to the tablet itself. Remotely. So once somebody got in to it from the tablet, now they can, from Russia, skim credit cards. On a group of restaurants and retail stores for years, and they didn't even know it, had no idea that they were being skimmed. The government, they tracked it, put it to a name of a person in Russia, went to the U.S. NSA, went to Russia, talked to the government there, and they basically, we don't know anything about it. We can't help you. At first they were helpful, and then, they're just communication shut off, and they couldn't figure out why. They did a little bit more digging, and they found out that the cyber criminal was actually the son of one of the Russian diplomats. And the government was not going to intervene. So they'll help us to an extent, but really it gets to a point where you're kind of on your own. We're not going to assist you in helping with it. I like to use this one just because it's my competition. Marsh & McLennan, they're a large insurance agency, one of the top 3 insurance agencies in the U.S. by size. They were hit by data breach in April. So security numbers, professional information, clients' information. That's like when you start, somebody gets in and gets to your client information. And insurance agencies, we collect a lot of information about you guys. Anybody who's gotten insurance, you have to provide a lot of information that folks is definitely not public information. You don't want it to be public information. July 15th last year, U.S. government unveils an online ransomware hub. So the U.S. government actually realized this is going on. We've got to do something. So I hate to say this, but my thought is when the government says we're going to fix this, you know you're in trouble. Yeah, right. You know it's trouble when they say we're going to fix this. But if you get a chance, check out this website, stopransomware.gov. It actually provides a lot of useful information on there, and it is continually updated by the Justice Department and Homeland Security. February 2022, right before Russia launched its invasion of Ukraine, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Have you ever heard of CISA? Some of you maybe haven't. It's a new agency for cybersecurity and infrastructure. They issued a rare shields up warning where they're saying, be prepared for attack. Russia attacking Ukraine physically is part of the attack. They also put huge cyber attacks. Ukraine, and not just Ukraine, but around the world. Because a lot of folks were looking at CNN and TV and watching all this, and they get distracted by that. And now is a good time to go in and perform cyber attacks because people are distracted by what's going on. Every organization, large and small, must be prepared to respond. The problem is every organization is not prepared. March 1st, so what was that, a week ago? Today, the Senate passed a cybersecurity bill amid fears of Russian attacks. So the U.S. just passed a new cybersecurity bill unanimously, legislation that requires companies in critical sectors to alert the government of potential hacks. So now there's another government requirement of reporting. If you are in a certain sector, the sectors, you could imagine companies like wastewater treatment plants, medical facilities, utilities, right? Sectors like that could affect a very large group of people at once. That's where they're going to start. What's likely going to happen is they're going to keep adding sectors. Okay, well, we forgot about you guys. Well, what about petroleum? Oh, what about food? Oh, what about to where it'll get to the point where almost everybody has to report if you've had a cyber attack or a breach within 72 hours. So it passed the Senate. I guess it has to go to the House to be approved. It was unanimously passed by the Senate. Doesn't mean the House is going to pass it, but typically when something passes unanimously from the Senate, it's going to pass unanimously through the House. So be on the lookout for that. Thought ransomware couldn't get any worse. Now ransomware gangs are stealing victims' data before unleashing the ransomware. So I guess the question is, how do they get to your data? How do they typically get in? Can anybody tell me what's the number one way that more than 90% of all cyber attacks begin? Close? Not that. Come on, everybody has had this happen to them. Email phishing. Email phishing. That is how more than 90% of all the attacks begin. And the reason they do is because they have to provide. They call phishing is typically when a cyber criminal reaches out to a mass group of folks through email. It may be everybody in one company. It could be everybody who has Gmail email address, Yahoo, AOL, anything like that. And what happens is you get an email and it says one of many, many things. It got me one time. I clicked on it and I was so upset that I got, because I feel like I'm the one that's always thinking about it. I look at every email. This one that I clicked on was actually from our IT department. So our company set me up, and they did it in such a way. I had just put in a technology request. And then 15 minutes later, I get a response that looks like the same response that they send us when we put in a technology request, saying something, click here. So I got upset, like they weren't taking care of my thing, and I had to click here for something else. And then as soon as I did, I realized that it was, now at least it was my company doing it, because they test us. And most companies are doing that now. At least larger companies, part of their preventive measures is training the employees. Why? Because 90% of the attacks come in through employees. You click on the email link. What happens? A lot of times it runs a script and they collect your login and your password. So now they're into the system, but just on a base level. They've got into your email. Maybe they can go further. Maybe they can get into multiple emails through there. Then a lot of times what the company will do, the hacker, for a while, and watch all the emails on the system. They look at the CEO, the CFO, the president, the CIO, and they see how they communicate to each other. And then they'll plan their attack. There's all kinds of different attacks that they use. The one that you mentioned was you get an email from somebody in your company. It's urgent. Beware of urgent email. There's usually an email that's not that urgent. If somebody has something urgent, they're going to pick up the phone and call you, or they're going to walk into your office. That's how I do it. When I've got something urgent for somebody to take care of, I do not send them an email. But people get thrown off. 9 times out of 10, it's from your boss or superior. And a lot of times it's from somebody you don't usually hear from. So it could be your boss's boss. They know your boss just went out of town. He's on vacation. Why? Because you can see his emails back and forth. Boom, he's on a flight right now. You can't even get a hold of him. Attack. And then phishing is when you go out to everybody. Spear phishing is when you're looking at a specific person. So I know you're the CFO of the company, or you're in the accounting department and you manage money. So they reach out to you, look at the email, and if you click on it, it actually came from your boss's boss. If you check the address, it came from that address. So it's not like they spoofed the email. They're in your system. They can create an email from anybody that they want and send it internally. Because it's internal, you don't even get that notice like outside emails. And a lot of companies have set up to where when you get an email and it's from outside of your organization, a little thing pops up at the top. That's a great way to try to protect the company. But if they're in your system, then you don't even know. They send an email saying, I need you to wire $10,000 to here, or you're conducting business with somebody on a regular basis, one of your clients, and they send you a change of information for the banking, for wire transfer. Well, you deal with these people regularly. It's not, you don't even think of it. Why? Okay, they changed their account. They were hacked. And that's it. We got hacked. So we have to change our bank and round. Oh yeah, you got hacked. Sure, that's happening. And well, they didn't get hacked, but you're getting hacked because you go in and you send the payment. Now, we had one giant construction project. We insured the general contractor. The owner was paying them $1 million a week. That's how big a project it was. A couple of weeks go in and they reach out. We haven't gotten paid, for a couple of weeks. What's going on? Oh no, we paid you. Here's proof. Here's where. But no, they didn't. They paid the criminal, and by that time, it was gone. It- You'd like to think you can go to your bank and they're going to make it whole if they can get it, if they can stop the transaction. So if it happened that day, a lot of times, and you figure it out, the banks can help out. But once it's been a week or two, you're kind of stuck. Yeah. And so, yeah, well, it's happening. This was local too. This one here was a large, well-known contractor, and the thing was we had the contractor insured, which was great. But the problem is the contractor didn't do anything wrong. They had no liability. They just didn't get their money. So the people that had the issue was the owner. They didn't have insurance. So what did they do? Coughed up an extra $2 million and kept the project going. Yeah, they likely have insurance now, but it's a lot harder to get after the fact. When you say, yeah, we had a little $2 million claim, but we've got procedures in place now, so it's not going to happen again. So back to this, once the attackers, they get in, they collect a bunch of data, and then they'll get out. They'll take all your data and they'll post it somewhere else. Not necessarily on their servers, but they can go in and utilize other companies' servers to store data, stolen data, which is a lot of, oh yeah. So a lot of criminals, what they do, they can afford to manage servers and all the costs associated with it. So they figure out a way to put your data on somebody else's server network. And they kind of, a lot of times they'll hide it in there. Well, the other thought is, okay, if you're that company and you are hosting all this data that some cyber criminal hid on your server, you're now liable because you have all this data and you didn't even think about it, because who would even think that somebody's going to come in? It's like somebody using your warehouse where they're storing all their stuff that's stolen inside your warehouse and you don't know it. The way to kind of check for things like that is there's software available that can look and see if there's differences in normal activity. Why is there a lot of activity on this particular server or in this file area, file folder? How to protect yourself? Partner with a cyber security firm that can protect you. That's what, yeah. We're not selling anything, but that's what these folks do. So, already have a security company. I can try. It is really, we'll get into that in a minute. Because if you've got protection and doesn't mean you can't get hit. It just means that if you do get hit, you've got somebody to hopefully to fix it. It's like having a good mechanic. If something happens to your car, okay, you can't stop it from happening, but you need to know what are you going to do after it happens so that you can continue going again. You've got a good cybersecurity company, they can get you going again. You have insurance, pays for it. That's because otherwise it could be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. And it not only pays for the cost of a company to fix the problem, pays for the ransom. That's the biggest thing, is they don't always pay the ransom, but they do if they feel like they can get your data and you can continue your operation. Multi-factor authentication, MFA, just in case nobody knows what MFA is. Everybody hates it. Nobody wants it because it's another step every time you try and get in. You think you're like, So you have multi-factor cubed, basically.
We have 5-factor.
Layers of multi. Does anybody not know what multi-factor authentication is? Well, I'm going to tell you anyway. It is, for instance, when you go and try and access your bank account, and they say we're going to send a text to this, and you get a little pop-up and it says key this number in to your system. You key that number in. Now they've confirmed at least that the person who set up the account with that phone number, that it's that phone number that the information was sent to. It's great because it stops a lot of breaches from people just being able to get your information, your data, your credentials, and log in. But it's also not. It also doesn't stop everything, because unfortunately, I can pay $50 and have any one of your cell phones cloned if I know your number, and I can get all your texts. So I know it's wait a minute, but we've created this way, this multi-factor authentication to stop that. It's going to probably stop 95% of those. But if somebody really wants to get in, they're going to find a way in, and not necessarily your system. Yeah, unfortunately, the criminals are always going to find another way to get in. Luckily, they're likely not targeting most of us in the room. They're usually targeting bigger companies. But what happens is you've got your high-end cyber criminals, and then you've got your wannabes, people that, okay, I want to try this. You can go on the dark web. You can pay $50 for a hacking kit, where the company will provide you a kit so that you can start hacking other companies. And they basically give you everything that you need to get started, and they give you a split 60-40. You get 60, they take 40% of whatever you do. So a lot of individuals, it could be high school kids, start learning about cyber hacking. What can we do? How do we get in? They're not going to start trying to hack large national companies. They're going to start with smaller companies and practice, see if they're successful, and then probably grow to larger hacks. I need to update my proposal, although you can see it is updated because I've got things from last week, but this last line is no longer true. You cannot get an indication just by providing your company name, website, and annual revenue. A year ago, that was the case. Cyber insurance, all we need: name, revenues, website. We'll do a quick search. We'll pull up your website. We'll take a look, make sure that it doesn't already have malware or malicious script on your website. A lot of folks have that. They don't even realize it. And it's usually at the checkout area of the process, where someone can get into your system, add as little as 3 or 4 lines of script, which you would never even notice, that takes the credit card information and the data associated with it and immediately sends it off as you're checking out. And a lot of times what the companies do, they collect those for a while, and then they post on the dark web, hey, we've got these credit cards. They're from the US. So depending on where the data is from, depends on its value. US and European credit cards pay the most, meaning they're most likely to work, as opposed to cards coming from other countries. And I don't know how many of us have got our credit card, or okay, yesterday.
I called them and I'm like, who is it? And they're like, all we know is PayPal. PayPal. I'm like, I don't have PayPal. I can do it. Pay it off. So they shut down all of my credit cards. I got all new credit cards, which already came in today, but all of my recurring balances. Now I have to redo all that.
Yeah. So even though this presentation is about businesses, we can relate because we've seen it happen personally to us. Well, did it cost you any money?
Headache of figuring out which accounts that I have automatically on there on that credit card that I have to now change and call credit card. Of course, I took the one that has all three of my kids have that credit card.
So hassle for you. Technically, you didn't feel too much pain because it didn't cost you. Well, it costs somebody. It's not free. Who's paying for it? The credit card company, PayPal. Exactly. So it's another way that costs are being increased. The credit card transactions used to be fairly simple. I mean, fairly inexpensive. You're up to like 3% now. If you're accepting credit cards, it could be a little bit lower if you're doing it on a larger scale basis, but it's it, it's expensive. So I'm showing this. This was the application that we've been using for the last few years. You can't read it, it's too small. But my point being is your company information, contact information. Actually, they did add this. Do you use MFA? Do you have third-party technology service provider? Previous incidents, sign. Pretty simple to get insurance. Now, here's the new application. And same information in the beginning. Actually, no, here we go. And then it goes into basic risk questions. Do you use MFA? Do you maintain daily office backups? Who's your managed service provider? Have you had any of these incidents happen? Do they have a financial impact on you? Have you experienced any previous cyber incidents? Well, most folks have. Now, tell us about your top clients. What's your approximate operating expenditures on IT security? The insurance companies, they started out with, we need to protect folks. We'll put a policy together. It'll be pretty broad and a little bit of basic information. Well, they got hammered. So they got hammered because they didn't know if the company that they were insuring really had measures in place to protect themselves or if they had nothing. And a lot of companies just don't. They don't use a third-party company. Client, the owner's brother, he manages it. He's a great IT guy, but you need more. You need more, even if unless you are a security, technology, cyber company, and that's what you do, you need to hire a security, technology, cyber company like AOT to protect you when something comes up. And they go, do you anticipate spending the same or less, the same more or less in the next financial year? They want to know how much money you're spending before they insure you. They want to know that you are putting money and resources to protecting yourself. And then one of the first things that they do when you get the insurance policy is they do a penetration test. They say, okay, we're going to insure you, but we're going to check you out first. We're going to try and hack you. Or not necessarily hack you, but find out. Do you have open ports? Do you use Microsoft 365? Anybody use 365? We do. Seems like almost everybody uses that. Well, there are exploits on 365 that are well known that if you have not patched them, you're susceptible to cyber attacks. So you have to not only have a company to protect you, you've got to make sure that you are updating all your software all the time. That if there is a patch, the reason there's a patch is because someone is hacked. Not, I mean, that's why they create the patches, because someone has figured out how to get into the system, and okay, let's put out a patch for that. And then when they put out a patch for that, they typically find another way to secure and go from there. How many folks have iPhone? Okay, I'm not going to ask if you don't have an iPhone, but if you don't, you are 95% susceptible to attack by cell phone, meaning 95% of all cell phone attacks happen on Android devices. Yeah, because it's a different security system, and Apple devices are much more secure. You can't get in and run your regular software on an iPhone, malicious software. So 95% of them are all done on Android devices. Just to let you know. Now, most attacks don't come through cell phones. They usually come through the network. And I'm not dogging Android devices, because the folks that use them love them, and the people that use iPhones typically love them. And everybody I know that's tried to change from one to the other can't do it. I did it myself. I tried to change because our IT person loved Android and they supported it better. Every time I called them with a problem, they said, "Well, that's iPhone. I don't really know, why you're having." uh, well, I feel like it's a snob thing both ways, though. That it's like, well, I've got Android, and look, I can do all this, but they are the Microsoft devices, or the Android devices, are much more susceptible to being hacked. Sure. Well, another way that criminals get in is software that is no longer updatable. So you'll get a notice sometimes, like, hey, we're not updating this anymore. DOS 3.0. Or if anybody's worked in DOS, like, yeah, we don't, we're not updating that. So once a software that you're using in your company becomes obsolete, you can still utilize it. Be like, well, this is great though. We don't want to change because it works great. We don't want to have to change all our systems and training and figure all this out. Well, you're much more susceptible to being hacked, being attacked, if you have software on your server that is obsolete and it's not being updated. So it's a constant battle. You're constantly trying to update your software, change software. Nobody was on Microsoft 365 5 years ago. Did it even exist? How long has Microsoft 365 been out? Has it been more than, okay. But you don't see people walking around with Blackberries anymore. Now, at the time, they were the most secure. The government used them. Towne Insurance is owned by Towne Bank. We had to use Blackberry. Hated it. And just because I didn't. But technology changes, things update, and we as consumers and businesses have to try and keep up. More questions on the application now in order to get insurance. And a lot of these folks that I meet with, they have no idea when I ask them. If you use remote desktop protocol to allow remote access, describe the measures you adopt to secure it. People look at me with big stares like, well, when we've got software and we use, Norton antivirus, so, right, we're good, right? No, unfortunately, you're not, and insurance is getting more expensive because they're paying out more claims, and the insurance companies are doing their best to put the onus back on their clients to say, wait a minute, before we're going to put up $1 million insurance for you for, say, roughly $3,500 a year, just throwing out a number. But if you take a construction company with $25 million in revenues, it's like my average client, that's about what they're paying for cyber insurance, which in the grand scheme of things is pretty inexpensive when you think about one tractor trailer costs that much to insure. One vehicle, they can get $1 million worth of cyber insurance. And
Does that mean that the actuarials are really starting to dig in and get much more data than they used to have access to, and now their charts are starting to look a little bit headier?
sure, yeah, really didn't have much data to start with because it was a brand new product. So now they're like, okay, how much are we paying out compared to what we're taking in?
Questions that we're seeing on the applications are really revolving around problems that they've had, claims that have had to be paid.
Exactly.
Is
So
that, having had to have insurance forever, I realized early on that insurance companies are not in business to pay claims, but paying claims is the cost of doing business. They're in business to make money for the rest of the time. And I've just noticed over the past number of years, the number of ways that hackers are able to dig into and through sort of defensive systems has become a little bit more elaborate, a bit broader. And I keep looking at the applications, and I notice they keep getting longer, and they keep having additional questions that weren't thought of 2 years ago. So you see, is that really kind of what's going behind a lot of this?
yeah, that's exactly what's happening. Is the insurance companies are realizing all the ways that they're getting hit, and they're trying to stop themselves from paying claims. Right. Yes.
That have these kind of issues. But my question is going to be specifically toward the claim process. So let's say something happens today, and I feel the need to pick up the phone and potentially place a claim. Could you walk me through what that process looks like, sort of from start to finish? After you talk to your lawyer, and the lawyer says, "Yeah, you need to call." What happens then, and what kind of timeline are you looking at? What entities are involved, from legal to insurance to feds to law enforcement? Can you walk me through that process?
Sure. Your first call should be to your attorney. Always. We would like to think that we're the first call, but in this particular case, you need to notify your attorney and let them know what's going on so that you have the protection of client privilege communication. You tell your attorney if you screwed up or if you know, like we kind of know what happened. We were working on this. We hadn't quite fixed this vulnerability. You don't want to tell your clients that. You don't. A lot of companies think, oh gosh, I need to let my clients know what happened because that's the right thing to do. It may feel like the right thing to do, but it may also put you out of business. Right. It may not be the right time. So after you call your attorney, call your technology provider and put them on alert, whoever's your cybersecurity company. Say, look, this is what happened. I called my attorney. I'm letting you know next. My next call is to my insurance agent, insurance company. A lot of times, the cyber policies will have direct reporting to where, as if I'm your insurance agent, I want to know too. Call me because I want to help communicate. But the next call is to the insurance company, and they are going to then get specialists involved. They're going to have somebody from remotely log into your system, try and figure out what happened, and go through and determine how long have they been in there. Can they recover your backup? And they're going to kind of direct you from there. As far as notification to the government, you can absolutely notify them. They keep track of cyber criminal activity, breaches and such. I honestly don't know what they do with all the information. I know that they collect it and they utilize it, and they probably on their website for the NSA use information to provide data to say this is how many people have been breached. This is the type of breaches that we're seeing. From that point, you're working with the insurance company to get you back to square.
What does that process look like before you can sort of, get breath and say, holy, that, how long is that process typically?
You're probably looking at anywhere from a few days to a few weeks. Any longer than that, and you're probably out of business.
Or is that something
Outsourced. We are a broker or insurance agent. So the forensics teams come from the insurance carrier, and we recommend there's different types of cyber liability coverages and riders and such. So if you have a package policy or a business owner's policy, you can add coverage on there for sometimes as little as $25,000 limit. We recommend you get a policy that is strictly cyber, because the companies that offer those policies have their own forensics. They're going to better get you through the situation when something arises. Nothing against any of the other insurance companies. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good, but they're not as astute as the insurance companies that basically do nothing but cyber.
follow up to that? What are you seeing? Everybody hears like a medical thing. Well, they stop covering it, or they're not going to cover that particular cancer because it's pre-existing. Are you seeing the same thing on the cyber insurance front, where you check all those boxes? Yeah, we've got two-factor. Yeah, we've got this and that, and then you get a breach, and then the company finds out that Susie's call that may have had nothing to do with the breach have antivirus on her machine, so therefore we're not going to pay. Those kind of things. Do you see that happening, or is there a potential for that?
There's definitely a potential for it. And it is all outlined. This is actually the insurance policy. So each policy is different. Pardon? This is not too bad. I'm going to say it's about 27 pages. Which, if you see most insurance policies, you get a stack this thick, and it's almost impossible to understand, because they give coverage away, then they take coverage. They give coverage, then they take it away, and then they give it back. These are a little easier to understand, but I'm just going to run through some items so you can understand the type of things that are covered. For instance, incident response costs. That's the first thing. Something happens, well, we need to respond. We need to call AOT. It covers those costs. Now, I'm not saying that every insurance policy covers like this one does. This is one of the most comprehensive, and the one that I utilize. Legal and regulatory costs, IT security and forensic costs, crisis communication costs, privacy breach management costs, third-party privacy breach management costs, post-breach remediation costs, and that's one section of the policy that covers all those items. Then you've got cybercrime, funds transfer fraud. That's a big one. You actually transferred money you didn't mean to. You get the money back. It pays the money back. Theft of funds held in escrow, theft of personal funds, extortion, corporate identity theft, telephone hacking, push payment fraud. I don't even know what that is. Do we know what push payment fraud is? Look it up. There's always something new that I find. Unauthorized use of computer resources. That's another insurance cost. And then it kind of goes down to system damage and rectification costs, income loss, and extra expense. That's a huge one. That's to me, that's probably the biggest one, is your loss of income because you can't operate. There's a company that does soil testing, anything involved when a building's being built. Like, they're one of the first companies in there that do a lot of the checking. They got hit. and they paid the $1.2 million ransom. But they were losing, their revenues were about $400 million a year. So theoretically, they were losing $1 million a day while they were down, while they couldn't communicate. They paid the ransom and they got their data back. That's your best case scenario. It was less than 10 days.
On those costs and expenses, is that something that the company, that the business has to pay first? In other words, if I have to call out a forensics expert in the course of the investigation or in the course of the remediation, is that an out-of-pocket expense that the insurance company is reimbursing for, or does the insurance do a direct pay?
Usually they do direct pay. If you want to go outside of their service providers, you could hire your own person, and it may or may not be fully paid back. Each policy is kind of different. So there's and it's one of the policies that, not like your workers' comp policy, they're all the same. Pretty much every workers' comp policy in Virginia is almost identical. That I don't have to read them. These policies are all different. The only thing I can recommend is you have an agent that's familiar. You've got somebody that is not like, okay, auto, work comp, cyber, check. Okay, you got cyber, you're good. Somebody that you can have a conversation with that is familiar with it. Because I hate to say it, but we're all selling it. Say we insurance agents. It's just somebody comes up and asks for insurance. Sure, everybody's going to provide you the coverage. Hopefully, it's what you need. Sure, but I don't know what your attorney would charge you to figure all that out. Like, yeah, I mean, it would definitely be the best idea to have your attorney review it. Right.
What's the best? I'm not legally. Got an email from last week that, hey, are these cameras going to not break the law? I can tell you your list used. I can have him do that.
It means nothing. They can pull out the couple segments that are, legally binding, but they can't look at it and say, I understand how the credit industry works. You need an insurance agent that you trust to say this is what's going to be best for your business. And then I think anything you sign a lawyer should look over, especially if you have
To use kind of an example, I get a lot of contracts to review as an insurance agent. Now, typically, an attorney reviewed it or prepared it before it ever got to me. But what I'm reviewing it for is the protection of my client. So, for instance, a lot of my clients are general contractors, and they hire a bunch of subcontractors. They'll send me their contract, attorneys reviewed it, looks great, it's good to go. And I say, that's great, but you need to add that you need to be an additional insured. You need to add that it should cover not only your subcontractors, but your subcontractors. And I'll go through their contract that has been completely approved. And I mean, it's good, but it's not going to properly protect them in the case of a claim by one of their subcontractors or one of their subcontractors. So same thing with the cyber liability policy. the attorney may look at it and say, oh yeah, it's, it's good to go. I doubt that they're going to tell you it covers you for everything. They're going to say, we reviewed it. It's, got coverages that you need in there. Maybe they come up with something that's not included, but they have to really understand cyber. All the coverages that are included. And I'm just going to read a few more. Network security liability, privacy liability, management liability, regulatory fines, PCI fines, penalties and assessments, defamation, intellectual property rights. Well, you probably need an attorney that is intellectual property attorney just to figure out that part. Forget the whole contract, although I really, there are attorneys that specialize in cyber and nothing but cyber. So I know one that's in Richmond. I probably need to connect with one here sooner than later. Okay. Yeah, that would be great, because most of the attorneys that I know are not, that's not their forte, is cyber insurance and cyber liability. Maybe a dozen. Most of them are construction based. I work in the construction world with associated builders and contractors, associated general contractors, and those type of folks. But cyber and cyber liability, like, well, do construction. Why cyber? I always wanted to be a computer geek when I was in high school. Like, I loved computers, but I couldn't. I just I couldn't be in the office all the time, sitting in front of a computer. So I like it. I like to sit there and spend time and focus and research, and I listen to podcasts and go in and find things on the dark web that I find, and kind of get deep enough to where I understand enough to be dangerous and to tell you, well, get a cybersecurity company and get a cyber liability or a cyber insurance policy. We used to say cyber liability because it was, everybody's worried about them being liable. And people would say, well, I don't need cyber liability insurance because I don't really have people's data. You're talking like doctors, they need it, lawyers, anybody who has a lot of customers and clients where they collect their data. But you say a construction company, we don't really have people's data. What do we have? Maybe our employees' data. That's it. But we actually keep all our employees' data on a standalone computer that's not connected to the internet. Well, that's very rare that companies that companies do that. Most companies now, where do you store your data? Where do you guys store your data? Is it on your computer? Is it on your servers?
It's in the cloud.
In the cloud. Yes, that's where I was getting to. That most companies now, they feel secure because, okay, I don't have to worry. It's not my servers, and I'm not protecting it. My data is being protected by a third party, a company that's reputable. This is their business. This is what they do. And it seems great, but I can also tell you there have been cloud companies that have been hacked. One in particular was out of business in less than 24 hours, lost all their data and all their clients' data, every bit of backups, and you reached out to them and they were just gone. So it's not, that type of thing isn't reported on regular news. Hey, beware. But honestly, beware. Don't, if your data is all cloud-based, and that's where it is, you're relying 100% on that company that has your data to manage it. I recommend having some type of on-site, off-site, you control your data somewhere.
All right. Anybody have one final question? We're running short on time.
Are you the only one at Towne Insurance that focuses on cyber insurance, or do you have colleagues at Towne Insurance that have the expertise?
There's other people that sell cyber insurance along with everything else. I don't know anybody else that has taught classes on it that necessarily has the level of expertise that I do. I would hope that there's folks there that are spending hours and hours of their free time learning about cyber insurance and how to protect their clients, but I can't say.
All right, let's everybody give Mike a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh, and Norris.
Oh, look at this guy. All right, next.
That's Billy. All right. So,
Congratulations, Billy.
so Billy, you have an AOT book, which you might already have, or we have an AOT. I don't know what you call it. Cantina? Flask. We have a flask. And if you're not into drinking, we have a $10 gift card to. You want Starbucks? Take a buck. Hey. You mean my $2,000? This is our AOT book. Anybody, this is what you're all striving for, right? Oh, I want this book. Okay, so you're free to stick around and talk to somebody you didn't get to talk to, and if you have to run because it is 59, please feel free to run. Talk. I think we have everybody's business cards. If you have, feel free to leave them on the tables, and the green pens are from our friends at Worley. Thank you very much.